Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to give you the kind of the rules of the evening. I welcome you to the Candidates Forum. We have the Chamber of Commerce and the Colonial Beach Community Foundation has done this each election now for, I think this is our sixth Candidates Forum. Tonight is for the position of Town Council. And as I mentioned, the forum is planned by the Colonial Beach Chamber of Commerce and the Colonial Beach Community Foundation. There are brochures for the Colonial Beach Foundation in front of the computer here. I would urge your support of our community organization. Here are a few guidelines to be observed during the forum. The Candidates Forum is not an audience participation event. Questions for individual or all candidates must be written and should have been received by this time. Questions submitted after this time will be considered last. Questions will be asked at the discretion of the moderators. Not all questions will be used. Questions of the same category may be combined for clarity and efficiency. Questions will be discarded if they are deemed to be inappropriate or illegible. Questions may be directed to a candidate specifically or in general for all candidates. The candidate who receives the initial question will have 2 minutes to answer that question. All other candidates will have 1 minute to amplify or rebut the question. Questions directed towards a specific candidate will have no rebuttal from the other candidates. A candidate may receive a follow-up question at the discretion of the moderator. There is no rebuttal from the other candidates to follow-up questions. As you notice, candidates proceeded according to lottery. The candidates will begin with an opening statement of 2 minutes and will finish the evening with a closing statement of 1.5 minutes. That will allow approximately 90 minutes for questions and answers. I want to introduce to you the moderator for this evening is Kerry Geddes. He's president of the Chamber Beach Chamber of Commerce. The timer for the evening is Susan Mack, who is staff for the Chamber of Commerce. The question wranglers are Eric Nelson and Karen Grisevich. Karen is standing here in the front and she's got question forms if you want to fill out any of the questions now. There are 2 things additional. One is I'd ask you to silence your cell phone at this time. And the second thing is the public announcement. As you know, that the facility at the town center, the Peak Bone Room, where we normally have voting, is not available. And so voting come next Tuesday will be in the high school gym. Okay, let's begin the evening.
Thank you, Dr. Farney. Okay, we'll have opening statements. We'll start with you, Mr. Rogers.
It's hard to hear up here, Kerry.
Oh, you can't hear this?
It's kind of
Got it. Okay.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Phil Rogers. I'm a candidate for town council. A little bit about my background. I'm a United States Air Force veteran. I was in for 4 years, got extended for 1 additional year. I was fortunate enough to get 6 months of that early out, and as I began school at the University of Kentucky. I have a BS degree in accounting. Graduated from the University of Kentucky in 1969. I'm a certified public accountant. I was certified in 1977. I'm now retired as a CPA. I still maintain a business. I have a master's degree in management supervision from Central Michigan University, 1982. A retired civil servant, 37 years. I retired as Deputy Defense Contract Audit Agency. I'm self-employed since 2003. During that time, I did some government consulting, and I have a tax preparation business. I was married for 51 years. I have 4 children, 11 grandchildren. I'm a resident of Colonial Beach since July of 2015. I've been a town council member since November 2016. My goal as a council member has been to, and will continue to be, to use my knowledge and experience to grow the community, make it stronger economically. I'm in favor of increasing the number of permanent residents in Colonial Beach to support local businesses. I will work towards increasing our tourism interests. I'll continue to support the Colonial Beach school system and work to maintain a good working relationship with the school board. I'll work towards attracting new businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Mr. Della?
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Bill Deller, and I would like to thank the Colonial Beach Foundation, Colonial Beach Chamber of Commerce, Colonial Beach School Board for giving us the opportunity to speak to everyone this evening. By way of background, I'm 68 years old, and I've been a lifelong visitor to Colonial Beach and have many fond memories of the town from my childhood. I grew up in Washington, D.C., just a few blocks from the Navy Yard. After graduating high school, I spent 4 years in the Marine Corps and subsequently earned a bachelor's degree in business administration. I then began my civil service career and went to school in the evening, earning a master's degree in contracts and acquisition management. I am now retired. I first purchased property in Colonial Beach in 2009 and moved here full-time in 2014. I've been honored to serve on the Colonial Beach Town Council for just over a year and a half. I love the town of Colonial Beach, and I believe that the primary job of Town Council is to create an environment in which the town can grow and prosper. To that end, I've developed a platform with 6 planks, and very briefly they are as follows. Foster a culture of respect and service, revise the town's vision and mission statement, communicate, platform 4, review town services, platform 5, market properties, and platform blank 6, provide summer activities for students. I hope to discuss each of these as the evening progresses, and I look forward to an informative and fun debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Della. Ms. Schiff?
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me all the way in the back? Great. Excellent. Thank you for coming tonight. My name is Robin Schiff, and I grew up here in Colonial Beach. I am a drifter. I graduated in 2008 from Colonial Beach High School as valedictorian. I then went on to the University of Virginia to graduate with a Bachelor's of Science in Architecture. After that, I joined the United States Peace Corps. I was sent to the country of Guatemala without speaking Spanish. I then learned how to speak Spanish and worked in municipal development there for 2.5 years. While I was there, I worked to accomplish funding and implementing community projects and advocating on the behalf of the U.S. government for fair and free election processes. I then returned to Colonial Beach and joined the Planning Commission. I have served 8 years on the Planning Commission, and I was chair for 3. I have been active in town planning here over the past 4 town councils. I choose to come back to Colonial Beach and invest in my hometown because I can have the biggest impact here where I'm from. If you look at your handout that I put in your seats, you can see more specifics. But my main 3 goals are to provide better service to our businesses, to help startups be sustainable, to advocate for our comp plan and the planning commission recommendations, which have been awaiting town action, and 3, to invest in tomorrow by growing our town, protecting our natural resources, and providing more things to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schiff. Mr. Ryan?
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming out to our forum. My name is Patrick Guy, and I have lived in Colonial Beach for the majority of my life, and I absolutely love this town. Colonial Beach has brought me a tremendous amount of happiness, and I feel that it's time for me to get involved so I can begin to give back what this town has given me. I attended the schools in town as a child and graduated from Colonial Beach High School in 2008. I'm currently an employee at CBHS as well. I'm a paraprofessional, bus driver, and coach. I'm young, active, and willing to work hard. I'm not scared to get dirty myself and put in some hard labor in order to get things done. I do not claim nor think I know it all. I have a want to learn the ins and outs of our town more than I already do. I'm familiar with the terrain and understand what is and isn't beneficial for its residents of all ages. I believe that our town has endless potential. We live in a community that has the ability to be close and band together to make things work. I truly want to see this town have community unity and all parts of town work together to produce its best product. These projects and goals that are set and continue to be amended need to be completed. No process is easy, but I believe it is all possible. We need to focus on a few things at a time and get it done and then move on to the next task. Although they say a book should never be judged by its cover, they often are. We need to continue making Colonial Beach look nicer so we will attract more people, which will result in more revenue for our businesses and the town itself. There have been some projects in place that I would like to see finished and find ways for there to be even more means to beautify the town. Although our funding is minimal, we still need to find ways to maximize our resources. Often it takes just one person to put the work in to get stuff done, and others will begin to follow. I hope to be this person that can get more people involved in town. I want to provide its citizens with the stability that is needed on council and make level-headed and well-informed decisions that provide for the greater benefit of this town. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Ms. Robertson?
Thank you. Thanks everyone for coming out tonight. My name is Vicki Robertson. You're going to have to excuse this squeaky voice because I'm not sure exactly where it came from, but I've lived in CB for just a little over 40 years. I'm married to Larry Robertson. We have 4 children. We have 3 beautiful grandchildren. I'm not biased at all. I taught in Colonial Beach for 26 years, and from there I went on to King George Elementary. I retired from King George Elementary in 12, but they will tell you that no, I haven't retired. Because as of right now, I've taken a long-term sub-position for 3rd and 4th grade gifted children in language arts. While I was here, I was a gifted coordinator, so it's right up my alley, and I'm really having a good time with those kids. I've been a part of numerous town activities over the years, river festivals, Halloween activities, Christmas activities. From 95 to 99, I ran the Arts and Crafts Show that was on the boardwalk, and at one time, we had 137 individuals down on that boardwalk. It was quite an amazing thing. I was also part of the revitalization committee recently, and I would like to see that finished because there were many, many good ideas that were in there. I also am 2 years into an appointment on the Rappahannock Community College Board, and I will continue to see that through for the next 2 years. I represent Westmoreland County among the 14 school systems that belong to RCC. I also do clinical supervisions for student teachers out of an online university. For quite some time, here it goes, I've contemplated running for council.
Thank you, Ms. Robertson.
No,
Mr. Robertson, sorry.
I didn't hear what you said.
I'm sorry?
I didn't hear what you said.
2 minutes are up.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Rogers, first question. Can you hear me? Okay. Do you think our Main Street is healthy and successful? If not, what would you do to change that?
You're gonna have to repeat it, it's very hard to hear you.
Okay, the microphone or?
Microphone makes
It's just very muffled.
It reverbs a lot.
If I talk louder, will that help or no?
Put it down.
Okay.
Try now.
Right. Mr. Rogers, do you think our Main Street is healthy and successful? If not, what would you do to change that?
I think the latest improvement was resurfacing Washington Avenue there. That was a great improvement. The lines are on the road now. What else to do improvement? I think something needs to be with some of our signage with businesses there, for instance, the riverboat. The sign should be updated to make it more attractive, rather they can advertise what they have to offer. I don't have any other suggestions for Main Street.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Dolan? You have 1 minute.
Thank you. I believe, as Phil just said, the signage is important. But beyond that, and it's not going to be up to town council to do this. This is going to be up to the private sector. The private sector needs to see the vision, needs to see what Colonial Beach has to offer. Our job is to provide an environment in which we can help to showcase what Colonial Beach has to offer. So what we need is creative and resourceful businesses to look at our town and assist us in building it out. Because right now, a lot needs to be done to improve it. We can do basic beautification, and there is some of that underway with banners and so forth, but ultimately, it's going to take the private sector getting involved and building out the Main Street with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dolan. Ms. Schick, 1 minute.
Sure. We do have a program that has been underway for some time but has not been realized, called the Main Street, on our capital improvement list, the streetscape for Colonial Avenue, and it was designed by a landscape architect. It's $50,000, and we need to prioritize it on town council in order to get it done because it needs some matching funds, although some funds have been raised already for it. Hopefully we can implement that. As well as that, I think we need to be showcasing to the commercial industry that is out there the live work opportunities that we have along Colonial Avenue, which there are more young people, more entrepreneurs wanting to work from home, wanting to take their dog to work with them, wanting to live and work in the same place that is walkable, bikeable, golf cartable, and we have that unique quality here. So I think our Main Street has a lot to offer. I do think beautification is one piece of it, but also showcasing the opportunity that exists in our Main Street that makes us different from other areas around us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schick. Mr. Ryan?
I'm also for the beautification of Main Street. As I said in my opening statement, I really want to see the book cover not judged. And right now I believe there's some things that when you ride down Main Street that just need to be prepared and look nicer as you come in. And first impressions are huge. So when people come down Main Street, they want to see something nice. And if they do, they're probably going to be fairly happy to come through town and visit our attributes, for lack of a better word, that we have, such as the beach and stuff. And I also think we need to advertise stuff like that. When you go to another town, you come down Main Street and you see where it says where things are and what businesses are certain places. And that's, basic things like putting a sign up and just advertising where you can go in town to your areas, like your parks and your beaches and businesses and such. Thank you.
Ms. Rose?
Yes, I agree with everyone that we really do need to get Colonial Avenue looking a lot like Washington Avenue looks. Washington Avenue, I think, has so many things going for it with the signage, with the businesses that do have their, what represents their business. Coming in on Colonial, we need to see if we can give some of those businesses some kind of incentive to get with the program and see what they can do with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robertson. Mr. Teller, next question for you, 2 minutes. How would you increase public participation in the town's decision-making process?
The question was how would I improve the town citizens' input into the decision-making process of the town?
It's how would you increase public participation in the town's decision-making process?
Okay. That's relatively, I think that's relatively easy for me, and I refer you to my plank number 3. I believe it all starts with communication. And that communication starts with communication from the town out. You can't solicit or expect input from the citizens if the citizens don't know what's going on. And unfortunately, we have not done a very good job of pushing information out to our citizens. And so that's why I put in here for my plank number 3, communicate, communicate, communicate. We need to be as open as we possibly can in providing information to the town and actively solicit input from our citizens. Don't just expect the citizens to respond to what they hear at town council meetings. We need to push information out and actively solicit information from them. We can do that through our webpage. We have a new webpage. We can certainly do it through a listserv arrangement where we push information out through email. There's a whole host of ways we can push information out, and we need to do a much better job of communicating.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Dillon. Ms. Shipp?
I think this is a topic that has come up over and over again recently because there's a lack of transparency in our town council to our public, and there are a lot of things we can do about it. In the Planning Commission, I have encouraged a more transparent process through establishing a public outreach committee, live streaming our meetings on the platform of YouTube, which is more accessible on people's phones, and getting it out there, starting a Facebook page, a Nextdoor account. We also now have a process for responding to people's public comment at Planning Commission to make sure we get back to them about things, and we provide a transmittal letter along with our resolutions so that we explain our reasoning and process for our decision making. These are some suggestions that could also be implemented at town council. The other issue about transparency is the fact that public comment is very last on the agenda. And so things get talked about at a work session where there's no public comment made, and then they get acted on at a town council meeting where public comment comes after an actual voting point. So I think moving public comment to the beginning could help with that too.
Thank you, Ms. Shipp. Mr. Ryan, 1 minute.
Yes, I believe that communication is one of the keys to getting more citizens involved in the town. A lot of the things that go on usually are generalized to maybe 1 or 2 organizations. And so where we need to develop a method, maybe through the website, like Mr. Della brought up, that where all organizations can come together and be in attendance at these events and know the ins and outs and stuff and know what's going on. And you know, attending council meetings, I see too that sometimes if you don't go to those, you don't know what goes on. So we do need to also maybe update more on our website the big events and big decisions that are being made or coming up more than just through a link of the minutes or the agenda on the website, but maybe highlight it more so it can be seen.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Ms. Robertson?
I'm a proponent of newsletters and sending them out to the community, a brief one, a 1-page one, maybe 4 times a year, maybe 6 times a year, where everyone contributes, the chamber, whomever that wants to put something into that newsletter and lets people know. Not only can that go on the website, but there are people who do not use computers that would like a hard copy of something. We could do surveys and ask people their opinions on certain things and what those things might be. I don't think we inform people as much as we could. And I think that these are some of the ways that we can get to people. There's also the avenue of sending things through our children and letting some of them get out there to get some of this information out. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roberson. Mr. Rogers?
Thank you. As Mr. Geller mentioned in his opening statement, the key here is communication, communication, communication. Certainly the website is one means to communicate. We do have the capability to put out special notices in our water, sewer bill, and real estate bills of important things. What I like too is the robo-phone calls. We've been using the robo-phone calls for trash pickup and emergency things, but we may be able to use it more often throughout time, the period, important notices be of importance to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Mrs. Shea, if the town received $1 million grant without any strings, what would you do with it and why?
$1 million. Sounds like a lot of money, but it's not. It's not that much money. It can be spent very quickly. I think one of the very first things that I would do is hire a grant manager, somebody who goes out and seeks grant funding, because that $1 million is going to get spent and we're going to need $1 million afterwards. And so we need to invest in that and diversifying our income here in Colonial Beach. We can't rely fully on taxes and on $1 million donations. So we need to invest in trying to diversify that and going out and seeking other money with it. The other thing that I would do with it is, obviously we have a capital improvement plan that lists needs and prioritizes them, and we would need to talk as a council about the priorities from that plan and making the realizations in the comp plan come to life. Some of those things that are on here are must-haves. I know that our fire department needs a new engine truck. Our rescue squad is going to need a new building in the next 10 years. The stormwater management plan to comprehensively deal with stormwater here in town is a big one. And First Street signage, crosswalks, and the sidewalks at the school. I mean, there's $1 million right there, and I haven't even listed off 5 things on the CIP. So $1 million, I think the first thing I would do is hire a grant manager to try to get us $1 million more.
Thank you, Ms. Shea. Mr. Rogers?
I agree with Ms. Schick on the aspect that $1 million is, although it sounds like a big number to us, maybe personally, it would go a long way, but town-wise, it cannot go as far as we think. Some of the things that I would like to see done are continuously, I want to see the roads fixed and the potholes around town. It honestly drives me crazy, because I think that's a reflection of how we look as a town, and I think that's part of the beautification process. People come here and see that, they kind of think it's kind of a rundown area, and I don't want that view from our visitors that come in and spend revenue at our businesses, spend money at our businesses that creates our revenue. And I would continue to do the stuff with Main Street. I think we can continue to beautify that and fix it up and fix the sidewalks, and sidewalks in front of the school is another great thing. I mean, kids come through the school all the time, and it's not safe letting them walk down First Street and not have a sidewalk to walk on with cars that go down the street. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Ms. Roberson?
Yes, I agree with the beautification aspect of it. It always is so nice when we clean up for the 4th of July or we clean up for River Festival and everything is put together so beautifully. I think that it would be nice if we could keep that going all year round. The other amenities that the 2 previous people have mentioned are certainly things that we need, because we do want to be able to walk around our community. We do want to be able to feel safe. We do want the lighting and the sidewalks and different things like that that make this a great place to live.
Thank you, Ms. Roberson. Mr. Rogers?
Mr. Getty, would you repeat the question again?
Certainly.
Without the microphone.
If the town
town received $1 million grant without any strings, what would you do with it and why?
Only $1 million?
Only a minute.
Well, that's the problem. What I'd like to see is a plan that we would take a complete street in its entirety and mill it up and repave it. This business about doing the patchwork or pothole patching, there's something like you can't take a new piece of cloth and mend an old cloak. It doesn't work by just patching some of these holes and spots. But we could just take money, put up a budget. I don't know how many millions of dollars that would take. Maybe we get some of this infrastructure money from the federal government. But we need to take the most busy, most used streets and just build them up completely from one end to the other to really do an adequate job.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Mr. Deller?
Yeah, $1 million. I guess ideally what I would like to do is prioritize our needs before spending that money. But if you're asking me right off the top of my head what I would like to do with that $1 million, I guess number one, as I look around town, the main pier needs to be repaired. We have a pier on Monroe Bay Avenue that needs to be removed. Like Mr. I mentioned, the roads need to be patched. It's a continuous issue with patching potholes. There seems to be a never-ending frustration with leaks. It seems like the leaks are fixed 1 week and 2 weeks later they're leaking again. I know $1 million isn't going to take care of that, but I guess ideally prioritize. And I've got something down here on my plank number 6 that I think is very important, and that's getting involved in some type of summer work program for our students. I'll talk about that later. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deller. Okay, Mr. I.
What ideas do you have regarding the vacant town-owned buildings that are in disrepair?
The vacant town buildings in disrepair, I believe is a major problem. This keeps going back to how things look, and that's got to be fixed. First thing I would do is, we obviously need to get rid of them. I don't know if it's ourselves that will have to knock them down and clear the land, but I personally want to see it go commercial, and we find businesses that come in and take over some of these buildings that can create more revenue for the town. Homes are nice, and I do want to see more permanent residents, like Mr. Rogers said earlier in town. But I also think we need ways to further our revenue as a town through taxes and such in the business aspect, where if we have more business, we make more money. And that's the same thing with the business. It also creates competition, which will hopefully improve our businesses in town. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. I. Ms. Roberson?
Yes, I agree with many of the things that Mr. I has said. I would say either sell the land extremely cheaply or knock it down and see what a developer would think would be the best things to do with that piece of land. We have a center so close to the beach where we have so many vacant areas that were viable businesses at one time. And we really do need those businesses. The main streets that you visit that have been under the projects and people have redone their businesses is what makes you want to go into those shops and buy from those shops. So I think that would be the perfect thing to do with the land that we have.
Thank you, Ms. Roberson. Mr. Rogers?
Yes, if we're talking about buildings that are in total disrepair, I agree with Mr. I, they should be raised or demolished and properly cleared off and put it up for sale for potential commercial business to come into town.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Mr. Deller?
Right, well, I guess I'd refer you to my platform plank number 5, which is market properties. If you're just talking about the current vacant properties, many are in disrepair, but they're not in such a state that they couldn't be refurbished. We see a case of that with the old police department, where that property was sold and it's going to be refurbished, and I understand it's going to be a restaurant. bar up top. It should be quite a nice addition to our town. So, you know, the first thing that we need to do is look at our total properties and go to each one and actively market them, or determine what we want in that area, what we want our town to be. I guess that's the first step, is what do we want our town to look like in the future? And that gets to developing a good vision and mission statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dillon. Ms. Schiff?
Town properties that are not maintained are a burden to our community and our capital resources. Most of these buildings are in the downtown district. The town of Colonial Beach owns more than 52 parcels between Washington Avenue and the boardwalk. I would hope that we can get these properties either torn down in the case of the Klotz building, which is unsalvageable, or marketed with a realtor in the case of the Westmoreland Bank building, and provide assistance and incentives to renovation process for a new buyer to make the investment of maintaining the building. Most of the land that I would like to sell isn't even listed with a realtor, so that needs to come first. These properties need to be listed in the MLS, they need to be advertised, and they need to be made publicly available that they are for sale. The next step for property that's already for sale and does not have a realtor, such as the old school location, the Planning Commission has identified several uses for that property that could progress through a private-public partnership. These types of investment, you have to go out and seek, and the town needs to identify partnerships to reach them out in an active manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schiff. Ms. Roberson?
What are your thoughts regarding bringing more subsidized housing to town?
At this point in Colonial Beach's development, I'm not sure exactly where subsidized housing could go. We seem to have the majority of our housing in residential areas, and where our subsidized housing is, seems to be a pocketed area. I don't have a problem with subsidized housing as long as it's taken care of, in which I consider the properties that we have in town to be well taken care of. But I'm just not sure where that subsidized housing could go at this point.
Thank you, Ms. Roberson. Mr. Rogers?
Subsidized housing. Okay, we have 2.8 square miles here in Colonial Beach. I don't know where we would put it, and you say subsidized, are we talking about our county, our own city coffers to support this? I don't know where it would come from our town budget to support the subsidized housing. I think we have, I don't know that there's a demand for it right now, and if we have subsidized housing outside our 2.8 square miles, we've got to consider whether or not we have the resources to provide for that. What kind of support can we actually get from the county to help us with that? Like I say, I don't think our budget can withstand any subsidized housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Mr. Dillon?
Thank you. Several months ago, I had the opportunity to review and rewrite Chapter 6 of our comprehensive plan. That chapter had roughly 278 affordable housing contained in it. These are units that are not detached, and I'm sure that they would include some subsidized housing. My rewrite of that essentially charged us to partner with the county, and if there was to be any need for subsidized or affordable homes, that we would work with the county to put those homes outside, within the Colonial Beach community perhaps, but not within the town limits. So within the town limits, I don't see a need for any subsidized housing, but if the need exists in our community, then we should work with the county to have those subsidized homes outside the town limits of Colonial Beach.
Thank you, Mr. Della. Mrs. Schick?
There's an enormous amount of data in the housing chapter about what affordable homes mean and how that affects our community. And the most of that data really talked about us. It talked about young people coming back with affordable places to live, old people getting older and living on a fixed income. It wasn't focused specifically on subsidized housing, but yet on an affordable place to live and what that means for our community. What I'd really like to see develop are 8th through 12th Street. I want to see 8th and 9th Street develop first based on our growth rate so that we can get refunded for that back through connection fees. I want to see mixed-use buildings in our downtown region. I want to see density there. I want to see more people live, work, play, eat, stay, all in that one section. And I think that we need to look forward to an assisted living development for our aging community. We have a waiting list of the one we have now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Schick. Mr. Ryan?
As far as subsidized housing, I'm kind of with Ms. Robertson and Mr. Rogers on this. I don't exactly know where we could do that and how our means are of doing that with, honestly, land. We have a lot of developed land with homes on it, and I think our focus should more be to find more permanent residents that want to move into those and continue to grow that way through family homes and such as that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Mr. Rogers?
What ideas do you have for increasing revenue to the town aside from property taxes?
Other than property taxes? There's none. I guess there's only 3 sources of revenue. That would be property taxes, personal property taxes, meals, lodging. I don't know that I want to increase any of them right now. I'd like to look at this next year's budget just to see if we even need to certainly won't need to increase any tax, I don't believe, but there's not many ways to increase additional revenue.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Mr. Della?
Well, you're in luck because I wrote a newspaper article about this. And after we passed the 10-cent assessed property value for $100 a few months ago, it raised the taxes from 70 cents up to 80 cents. And there were a number of things we could have done then, and we can still do now. We can aggressively attack our delinquent taxes. For FY15 and 17, they were about $108,000. We can roll back the personal property tax reduction that was done. We are now carrying a burden of about $100,000. As a result of that, that burden was passed on to the property owners. Local sales and use taxes, they were projected in our budget to remain flat. It looks like they're going to grow by about $100,000. We had peer lease agreements in the past. Those peer lease agreements have been lapsed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Della. Mr. Schick?
Thank you. I think we need to be honest with ourselves about the Colonial Beach economy. We are small, we are season-driven, we have density, and we have a diverse community. These facts have advantages and disadvantages to growing our economy. Overtaxing our residents that can't afford it will have negative effects, as will not taxing enough to cover our own operating expenses. While we tighten our expenditure process, we also need to look for other financial options to supplement the needs, such as private-public partnerships, nonprofit funding, Northern Neck Planning District Commission resources, state, federal, and private grants, proffers, fee collections, and short-term state tariffs, as well as service districts. There are many ways that we can diversify our income. By spreading out our financial profile to more than just our small-town tax resources, we'll have a better chance at prospering.
Thank you, Ms. Schick. Mr. Ryan?
I don't want to see personal property taxes or property taxes increase. I don't want to see the burden go on the town citizens any more than it already is. And, I think, one way is going back to the business aspect of it. If we get more businesses in here, that's going to create the revenue, or businesses are going to bring more money in, and it's going to be more people in town that are going to spend money. And, that'll be money we earn on that as well. Some of it too is if we increase the amount of permanent residents here too, those businesses will be frequented more than just the seasonal, like Ms. Schick said, and it'll be year round money coming in and, such things like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Ms. Roberson?
I agree with many of the things that have already been said, and again, not knowing, not ever having been in this position to know what kind of taxes come in from our businesses. But I think if we had startup businesses that have wanted to come in, we could give them a tax break of some kind. We could definitely give a tax break for our elderly, because I know this has been a hardship with the tax increase on them. I agree with looking for those grants, looking for those things that can come into this community that will bring in the amount of monies that we could use to make things better. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roberson. Mr. Dillon, what are your ideas regarding a parking plan that will enhance revenue and be practical and accommodating to residents and tourists?
We've been looking at some time for an enhanced parking arrangement for the town. As you know, all permanent citizens acquire a town sticker for their vehicles. And so in this enhanced parking arrangement, where in the business districts we would have perhaps paid parking on the streets, perhaps even in the residential areas where if you're a visitor, you would either park off street or you get a sticker to park visiting a neighbor or something like that, and you're going to be there for a certain amount of time. There are things we can do. It's no different than in many Florida cities. They have what's called zone parking, where you park in a given area. If you're not a resident of that area, then you go to the police department or somewhere else and purchase a 1 day, 2 day, 1 week, whatever you may need sticker, put that in your window, and you're free to park there. Those are some of the ideas we've been kicking around, but I think it all comes down to taxing in some form or fashion people who visit the town here, charging them some type of a parking fee.
Thank you, Mr. Dillon. Ms. Schick?
So this last year, the town manager along with the town council doubled the parking fees in town for visitors. Went from $1 an hour to $2 an hour, $20 a day. I think we need to be a little careful about overcharging for parking, especially in the downtown region where we're trying to grow businesses. These businesses need places for people to park, and if $20 is going to discourage somebody from parking their car and walking around down there, we need to be a little sensitive to that, because we really want those businesses to grow our revenue and our economy more than just the parking. Also, I think we need to make some enhancements at Castlewood Park. There is a definite need for more parking in that area. There are no lines out there. People park all over the place in the trailers. Here we have this brand new boat ramp, and we really need to have clear trailer parking at that area to increase boaters using that ramp and more spaces for boats to be parked there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schick. Mr. Ryan?
I agree with Ms. Schick in the aspect of we need to watch overcharging for this, because we do want these people to come into town and spend money, and then if $20 is going to scare them away, is that possibly worth the charge? And two, piggybacking on Ms. Schick again, we need to have the parking lots be logical. I mean, you go down to a point and you park there, and a lot of people, will park in what could maybe be used as 6 or 7 more places for a trailer to be parked, but they just pull in the middle and, not really knowing where to go. So it needs to be lined and fixed and properly attended, so it's used more beneficial.
Thank you, Mr. Rob. Ms. Roberson?
I would have to agree with what everyone else has said. I don't think that we can charge people so much that they do not want to come to our community. I think we've been very fortunate that we do have the amount of crowds that we have in the summertime, which overflows into the businesses. And I would have to agree that we need more defined spots, possibly with numbers attached to them. When you put your parking stuff in or whatever it is that you do, things how we all have our stickers so that, we don't end up in a situation like that. But I just think it just needs to be looked at more closely so that we do not scare people away that are coming into town. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roberson. Mr. Rogers?
Well, whatever we come up with in a parking plan, we want to be careful because we don't want to hurt ourselves, particularly the businesses along Washington Avenue. We got to consider what hours we want when we want the parking fees to be implemented. I know there's some churches along Washington Avenue. We don't want to hurt the church-going patrons there. I like the idea of the year-round parking sticker. If there's people that visit Colonial Beach frequently enough, and go ahead and make available to them that year-round sticker. And then I think if there's any area where we can provide additional parking, we should look at, particularly if it's a run-down, dilapidated building that is in disrepair, maybe making additional parking out of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Ms. Schick, what is your vision for Elmer Park?
I get to scream it now. I thought about this issue a long time. I've been there since the beginning on this for the Planning Commission. Eleanor Park has been in limbo for nearly a decade. I believe that the intentions to remove the trailer park were good, but the reality is that the plan after that has fallen apart, that we have been missing out on a capital asset ever since. The reason this property continues to be controversial is because it was something revenue producing. We were told it would continue to be revenue producing, and instead it has been absolutely rendered useless as a benefit to the town in any way. The idea of subdividing it into single-family homes is not working because the unique conditions of this property do not fit its highest and best use. The subdivision ordinance is expensive. Stormwater management in a floodplain is expensive. It is in an RPA, and there are other options in Colonial Beach to buy a $500,000 home without putting it 8 foot above the ground with 16 stairs to the front door. The idea of the subdivision at this property is like trying to jam a square peg into a round hole. It is just not going to work. So, as a single parcel, you have 2 other options: a conservation-funded recreational space or a handicap-friendly condo townhouse complex. These need to be evaluated. A plan needs to be made, and a finality to this issue needs to be done with, so we can move on to focus on those 54 other parcels in that downtown region, and then develop the remaining number streets, and have an economic development plan for the acres of land out by Wilkerson's that continue to sit vacant. All of these are bigger and more income producing than anything that happens at Eleanor. So let's just figure out what works and move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schick. Mr. Ryan?
I'm going to be honest, I've mulled this question over a lot in my head, and I think that there's a lot of options that we have to look through and what's best for the town. We have to decide, the town council has to decide what route is best for us as a town to go with Elmore Park, whether it should be a recreational area or some sort of development go into that area. And I'm honestly truly split right now. I don't know how to answer that question because I see it both ways. And I think there needs to be a list that's prioritized of what's best and what's most beneficial and can make the most money for this town, you know, or attract the most tourists for this town to be beneficial to our area. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. I. Ms. Roberson?
I would have to agree with Mr. I to some point. I, for one, was one of those individuals that was in favor of selling Eleanor Park simply because it had brought in income for decades before, and primarily our resource of income is the tax base that we get from our community. If there are other options, then I am more than willing to look at those and see what others have to say about that. I'm open to whatever it is that anyone wants to present. That's something that is viable. With what Ms. Schick said, those were things that I really hadn't heard before. So obviously there are other options that the majority of people, I believe, aren't privy to or know that could be. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roberson. Mr. Rogers?
The sale of Elmore Park was one of the first issues I got involved with when I came on the council. We conducted a survey, and the survey said we have a potential of 14 lots there. Well, that's too many homes on that piece of property there. We kicked around with just how many lots should we have, sell them individually. I was for 9 lots, 5 in the front, 4 in the back. We had a consensus of 11 lots. That didn't go, it didn't really materialize to actually put the lots on the market. But we had an offer for 6 lots, so I was really excited about that. What my vision was to see bigger, more beautiful homes with permanent families in there to support the local businesses. It's unfortunate that that deal fell through, but I was really excited about that. I mean, I'd like to see some permanent families in there to support the local businesses, build our economy.
Thank you, Mr.